Hello, my name is Lynn Parsons, and you can find me on various platforms as Anti-Venom. My origin story is I found a missing veteran, World War II veteran, when I owned a pet grooming shop in Largo, Florida, who had been missing for 10 days but was still alive. Dogs had been sent after him in a highly urban area but had failed to find him, and so that got me interested in search and rescue. So I joined a local volunteer search and rescue team, did all the prerequisite training. We had to certify as a NASAR SARTEC 2 before we could ever be fielded as a dog handler. So for the first several months to a year that I was a member of the team, I did all the wilderness survival, man tracking, first aid, map reading, land navigation, communication courses that were a part of that certification. So that gave me an opportunity to choose which type of dog I would want, because at the time I had 2 foo-foo dogs. So I teched for various handlers using German Shepherds and Rottweilers and Retrievers and all types of different breeds of dogs. But having been a pet groomer for many years, I also knew the temperaments of certain dogs. And I had one particular dog that was a grooming customer named Noel. It was a red golden retriever, and Noel was his own kind of hero. When he ran across an older gentleman abusing his tiny dog, Noel got between the tiny dog and the man and was willing to, without aggression, take the punishment the older gentleman was meting out on his little dog. So when his owner told me this story, I immediately thought it was wonderful, and have worked with retrievers my entire life. I grew up hunting, so sporting breeds were my thing. So I settled on a golden retriever. And the golden retriever decided on his own, or through his own nose, that he preferred the odor of human remains. So we went with that, and in the state of Florida at the time, there was more work really for human remains detection dog handlers than there was for live find. So I spent several years as a volunteer canine handler, and then I was contracted to work in Iraq as a GS-15 human remains detection canine handler, and I worked in that position over the course of 3 deployments. The first deployment was supposed to be 20 days, and it ended up being 13 months. The second deployment was supposed to be 3 months, and it ended up being 14 months. So a lot of things happened, and over the course of that time, and plans that I had for my future were derailed, to say the least. And so I was dealing with it the best I could, mostly by learning to not feel, or to push every emotion I had down, because, girls don't cry in war. Big girls don't cry. No tears in war. So I had, during the course of all of the human remains detection dog handler searches, pardon my homespun English, over the course of the years, there had been multiple searches for a naval aviator named Michael Scott Speicher. None of the searches had ever been fruitful. So there came a time for another search in which a handler that had been hired went out on this search, and it was a very difficult search. It was hot, it was very remote. There was it was a Marine led search. It was just rough. So I was actually on my way to rotate out of the country, and that handler completely broke down on the mission and was fired, sent home. And I did not get to go home. Instead, I was sent out to replace that handler. So this search had been ongoing. There'd been lots of excuses as to why the dog wasn't working at its optimal level, and the Marines were not in the least bit happy. So while I'm waiting on red air to clear, there comes a radio call. I'm sitting on the flight line, basically, waiting on the ability to fly out to the search area, and the word comes back that Michael Scott Speicher's remains had been found. So I was pretty bummed out that my dog didn't get to make that find, but went on in. When I arrived, there was, I immediately had a sit down with the Marine CEO and his first sergeant, I believe. And anyway, they asked me some questions, and I verified, yes, it is not exactly the best circumstances. There were daily sandstorms. It was 120 plus degrees in the daytime. Would have really been better to search at night. But we were, so I let them know, no, it's not the best of circumstances, and I understand that dogs can only work so long before their nose shuts down in the heat and their nose becomes ineffective. So I was going to go out and I was going to do the best that I could. So I go out to this search area, and I'm given an area, and I'm not told that I was being tested, because the other handler and dog didn't do so well. So I start my search, and my dog starts alerting on the PRD guy's pack. And I kind of start freaking out, because I think my dog is false alerting. And the PRD guy who was out on that mission said, no, your dog's right. So I was like, oh, goodness me, yay, reward the dog, yay. So then I continue to work the dog, and the dog, my dog, Rudy, downs on the exact spot where the remains of Michael Scott Speicher had been found. And by that time, his alert was a down and a bark. And I could see there was a F-18 pilot that was out there, and I could see him tapping the CO and smiling, and that was the exact spot that his remains had been found. So we continued to have sandstorms, and I continued to try working the dog to try to find as many remains as we could of Michael Scott Speicher. And unfortunately, we did not locate anything else. But there were daily sandstorms. There was one sandstorm that was just ridiculous, that the Marines just sat in the tent and the sand literally piled up on their eyelid. Pardon me, I'm shaking. These memories are tough. So the gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, so anyway, it was a very tough mission. These Marines were sitting there. The sand was literally piling up on their noses, piling up on their eyelashes, and they refused to get into an MRAP because they're tough. They're Marines. The Navy surgeon sat in the sandstorm. So Rudy did not need to be subjected to that. And there was always an MRAP running with the air conditioner going. So I wrapped Rudy's face in a schmog, and we went to the MRAP, and we sat in the MRAP in the air conditioning until that particularly really horrendously awful sandstorm had passed. And my goodness, those Marines, they were something else. But it was a long and drawn out mission. We continued to stay there. When I first got there, I was the only female on the mission. There was, gosh, I think it was 100 and, don't quote me on this, my numbers may be wrong, around 125 Marines, a Navy surgeon, an F-18 pilot, Navy, I believe. And as soon as I moved into the tent where the officers were sleeping in this horrendously hot place, most of them completely moved out, took their cots out into the open, and they were not gonna share a tent with a female. So a couple stayed behind in the tent, and the Navy surgeon, he stayed behind in the tent. So I would occasionally, when I had to change clothes or whatever, Navy surgeon probably saw more than he needed to see, but you're sweating through everything. And so you got to do what you got to do. And he's a surgeon. He's seen it before. So that was the way that was. And the last evening, we were out doing another search, and we were going to be leaving. So the Marines ended up packing everything up. So I come back, and it's the last night, and all my crap's been shoved into my pack that I didn't carry out to the search area because I didn't need it. I wanted to be. I'd moved the necessary lightweight things that I needed out. So, anyway, we're getting ready to roll that night and getting ready on the mission to clear to go, and we're all sleeping in the dirt. No cots, everything's packed up, and sleeping in the dirt, you get cold. It's the desert, the ground. Yes, it's 120 degrees during the daytime, but it's horrendously hot at night, or horrendously hot during the daytime. But at night, if you're sleeping on the ground, it saps your body temperature completely. So I'm laying in the dirt and I'm using Rudy's butt as a pillow. He was a multi-purpose dog, and I started getting cold. And like when I first went to lie down, the PRD guy that I was pretty good buddies with, and over the course of multiple searches had developed a pretty good rapport with, and so I was cold. And when I fell asleep at first, he was laying next to me, and so I thought he still was, and I was gonna scoot up next to him to share warmth with him. And just as I was about to do it, I opened my eyes and I realized the person that I was about to snuggle up to had a bald head. And it wasn't my buddy, it was the first sergeant. So I immediately jumped back. I didn't know him like that. I respected him, and he had let me know that he was always around when I was talking to one of the Marines. And but I didn't think he would think that was very funny. And so anyway, I went back to Rudy and I gave him a good snuggle, and I suffered through until we were ready to load up into the MRAPs. And then as we were rolling back out to Al Asad, we hit a small improvised explosive device and took fire. And I happened to be napping in the MRAP because my job was done. I wasn't pulling security. I wasn't in the turret. I wasn't one of the Marines. So when we hit the IED, it jolted me awake, and so my eyes got real big, and I grabbed the PRD guy that I had developed a rapport with, and the Navy surgeon was sitting across from me, and he saw my eyes get big, and he started giving me this and breathing me through it. And we recovered, and we went back to Al Asad. So at that point, I was stuck there for days because they'd have a whole high priority mission going on for a cadaver dog handler, human remains detection handler, when they had good intel, but oftentimes you become less of a priority once the mission is complete. So you kind of, as you're waiting on the opportunity to get a flight back to Victory Base Complex, it can take a while. So as I'm waiting, it's taking days, and I'm a contractor, and it's up to each Farfignugan, I've forgotten the name of it, each kennel master, who was a Marine kennel master at that time, to decide whether or not a contractor could stay in their kennel or not. And I had been denied. They provided a bomb dog handler for the mission that was absolutely fabulous, and but I was denied staying in the kennel. So the dog is out. I'm staying in the chew with the Marines that I've run the mission on. And the Marines are playing with the dog. And they're throwing a frisbee and he's playing fetch. And the dog is barking, and an officer, a Marine officer, stomps up and says, what in the world is this pet doing here? And how did you get a pet? And so I explained to him that I had run a mission and I was a dog handler and I was staying in the chew. And he said, well, I have a kennel. And so he stomped off and gonna throw me and Rudy, who were entertaining the dudes we had run the mission with, who were absolutely fucking fabulous, to the wolves or whoever the hell. And oh, rat bastard. Anyway, so the PRD guy and the Marine guy that had been the CO of the Marines that I'd run the mission on saw me and said, why are you still here? Why did you not get flown back with the PRD guy? Or no, the PRD guy was already flown back, but the major saw me. And he's like, why did you not get flown back? So I explained to him everything that had happened, and he said he would fix it. And so I was flown out quickly after that. But, you know, it was always an adventure, and I'm very thankful that I got the opportunity to work with such wonderful people. It left some bats in my belfry. Pardon me, I see something on the road in front of me. My eyes are always, I have terrier blood. I see everything. Anyway, so it was always an adventure. Very glad I got to work with some guys. But, you know, the one guy that put his hands, actually physically was the first guy to put his hands on the remains of Michael Scott Speicher. Later on, him and I, as we were kind of celebrating the mission and drinking contraband liquor, some of the guys that were in PRD were pretty treacherous. And so, yeah, we drank too much, and we played Rockstar too loud, and we sang karaoke too loud, and we interfered with a chief that I will not name, and his ability to get laid. So that person who actually made the recovery and who worked his ass off, and I, photos of us while we were drunk were taken and submitted later to the powers that be and to the rat bastards that chose to fuck with me as evidence that I was such a horrible person. So, you know, I don't know. That person that did that, he was drinking too. They all were. There are a lot of secrets that I'll still keep to myself. But those fuckers weren't. The rat bastards that got me, one was well, fuck them. I survived. I survived. No thanks to any of them.